Hello, welcome to the Radio Academy. I'm Laura Rawlings. Now, in our house, it really wasn't Christmas until we'd had the GWR-FM Christmas appeal. I just couldn't get enough of it. We'd be playing it all the time on the radio. It was just full of energy, all the bidding and the prizes, the countdowns, the different callers that they had and people's stories. And it just had this real sense of we're doing something good all together right now. And it stays with me. And so decades later, when I got the invitation to go out on a vintage double-decker with Pudsey Bear to tour around schools and primary schools with lots of children, I definitely didn't need asking twice. It was an absolute joy. There are so many brilliant radio fundraising campaigns harnessing the generosity of listeners. And in fact, one of our recent-ish podcast guests, Ariel Free, is embarking on Radio 1's Tour de Dance for comic relief. And she's going to be cycling 50 hours across 5 cities in 5 days while DJing. I mean, it is just the ridiculous things we do, right? So what we thought for today's podcast is that we would actually put the focus on raising money on the radio. And we've got a collection of guests for you. We've got Emma Brown, who's Sales and Marketing Director at Cash for Kids. So this is Bauer's charity across its radio and magazine brands. We've got Olivia Copeland, who's Station Manager at Cam FM. That's a student and community station for the University of Cambridge and Anglia Ruskin University. And they hold annual appeals for various different charities. And Graham Liver, he's the breakfast presenter on BBC Radio Lancashire, and he's been involved in many of the BBC's Children in Need appeals, and the dafter the better, in fact. Things like pulling a bed over 100 miles.
Are you ready for a little spin?
Very much so, yes. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, let's get going then. Come on. We got Alan Wright pushing at the back. You got me and you pulling at the front. Off we go. We got Sally's going to be with us as well. Tons of people here at the Flatiron in Chorley. Just thank you ever so much. Preston, we go. Are we all ready? Right, 1, 2, 3. Away we go out of the Flatiron. See you later. See you later. Off we go. When will you finish today, Steve? It'll be hot.
It's harder than you think, isn't it?
Tell me about it.
In little video clips thinking, oh, it's not so bad, that. But it's the holding the bar. It's a lot heavier than you think, the front of it, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, dear me. And also, I've got this problem with it. I've realised now why I haven't worn these pants for several years. They were the only waterproof pair.
Chafing?
No, it's not the chafe. They're a little bit too long.
Right.
And I keep catching them on the back of my heel.
Cicely, right, confirmed results for you. Good job down there on the Riverside. If you are listening at home right now, just like Cicely said, a lot of effort goes into delivering the May bumps. Normally we have a corporate sponsor, but this year we do not. We've donated all of that airtime over to our Ukraine DEC appeal. So if you're celebrating because your crew has successfully achieved blades, maybe you're on for spoons and you're looking for something to do just to console yourself, you can go where to donate this afternoon?
www.camfm.co.uk/donate.
We would love it if you would.
Alright, come on, high vis, let's go.
Wow, we're nearly there. So close. So close. Are you feeling okay?
I'm feeling
you know what
okay.
This is great for?
What?
Your bum.
Thank you. There's nothing wrong with my bum.
No, I'm not saying for you, your bum. I'm saying, climbing is great for your bum. I think by the end of this, I'm going to look like Kim Kardashian.
Or Madonna.
Oh.
Don't you want a bum like Madonna?
No. Maybe I'll go back down.
Look, we can actually see the summit. Apparently there's an adjective or a verb to summit. We're summiting.
We're summiting.
We're summiting right now. So if you could just be quiet and let me summit,
okay.
Because I need to concentrate on this.
Summit up.
So, by the way, the reason we're doing this, well, there's challenges because we're helping raise money for Cash for Kids. So if you could donate, if you can, would be great. Thank you very much, sir.
No problem.
It's at magic.co.uk. Oh my God, there it is. Let's do it together. Let's have a moment together. Let's touch it together.
We did it.
Ronan, we're touching the void.
Oh, we did it. It's wet and so quick. Look at this.
Oh, we got a flag.
Somebody left a magic flag up here. That's crazy.
Who's been here before us? Who the heck has been here before us? All right, we're going to celebrate the only way we know how at Magic with Dancing Queen from ABBA.
Oh, it certainly warms the cockles, doesn't it, listening to that? So what goes on behind the scenes then to make it all happen, to make campaigns like this come alive on the radio? You might have seen that Bauer's Mission Christmas raised over £14 million, despite a tough financial climate. Let's start with Emma and find out what she thinks are the key ingredients in a campaign that will encourage listeners to chip in.
The first and foremost is, what's the call to action? We have to make it really straightforward. We need to make it simple. If it's too complicated, people are not going to engage with it. We need to understand what the story is we're telling. We need to be clear about how we're going to bring that to life for our listeners so they can understand the need. And then we need to give them a really clear call to action in terms of how they can respond to make a difference. And then aligned to that, we need to work with each of our individual brands to identify how they best interact with their listeners to make sure that the content we're delivering on those brands is relevant and engaging for those listeners. And that means handling our campaigns in slightly different ways according to the radio brand that we are working with.
And also the personalities, I guess, the individual presenters who are going to front it.
They are key. Having our presenters engaged at the very beginning of the story, having them involved in identifying how we're going to bring this to life and what that's going to look and sound like is absolutely the key to the success of the campaign.
In terms of something that I hadn't thought about until I started talking to you and just thinking about your big role. So you are trying to find those partners who are those big commercial brands who are going to come and be a part of this. You're thinking about how the campaign looks across all the digital assets and, you know, on the radio. And you've also got, when you're raising over 14 million, there's a lot of toys, there's a lot of background logistics. Can you just give us a little insight into that side of things as well?
So Mission Christmas distributed £14.1 million worth of gifts and cash across the Christmas period last year in a 6-week window. In order for us to do that, we had to work with multiple commercial partners across our brands to drive on our on-air awareness. In order to distribute those 14 million, we need to set up 22 Mission HQs across the UK that can take receipt of those £14 million worth of gifts. And then we rely very heavily on an army of volunteers. We had in the region of about 3,000 volunteers that supported Mission Christmas, helping to sort and segregate those gifts and then get them packed ready for distribution to the organisations that we support. And in order to get our hands on those gifts, we had to secure around about 6,000 drop-off points across the UK, some of which are through our commercial partners and some of which are through supporters that interact with us all year round, and they take receipt and then deliver them into our Mission HQs.
Yes, just a little glimpse into this complicated picture. And in terms of what the stations get from it and the brand Bauer, I'd like your take on that. And also the commercial part, you know, your commercial partners, your clients, what is it that they get from being a part of this?
So in terms of Bauer and the brands, it's about connection with listeners. When we launch Mission Christmas, we're delivering a call to action for our communities. We're talking about some of the scenarios that families are living in that might not be the same for everyone across the UK, but they're very difficult. And we're trying to engage our listeners in buying one extra gift. That gives us incredible content on air and allows our listeners to have a very intimate conversation with our listeners about how they can help to make a difference and the impact that that's going to have. In terms of our commercial partners, we work really, really closely with commercial clients to identify what they want to achieve out of our on-air activations. So we will literally drill into their corporate social responsibility objectives and identify how we can help meet them with our campaign. So Mission Christmas will be a really good example. With Mission, we've got brands like B&M Bargains who are looking to drive footfall into store through the Christmas period, and we absolutely deliver on that for them. They're looking to engage their staff. They want to connect hearts and minds with their employees because they know that it helps with retention and motivation of staff. Okay. And then obviously from a consumer point of view, it's very much embedding the B&M brand into the local community and demonstrating their support for local families.
It's so interesting. So we're talking under the banner of fundraising on the radio, but given the different parts of radio that you each belong to, there are just such different considerations, as we'll discover talking to you, Graham. So as part of BBC Local Radio, and you mentioned you've done loads of children in need things over the years, haven't you? Don't have to think about those commercial side of things, but yet there are many other considerations that go into it. First of all, why do you say yes to these mad things on air?
I've always loved children in need from being really, really little. I've loved children in need from being really, really little because on a Friday night when they had the big show with Terry Wogan, when they did the regional ops, which are not that big now anymore, but when they did the regional ops in Manchester would go to little regional ops and they would always feature the local radio station. Yeah. And because I'm a sad anorak at home, I'd go, oh, look, there's so-and-so. They were live at the radio station. So there was always that connection with children in need with my local station. And when I started at Radio Cumbria and with Radio Lancashire and Radio Leeds, you realise the difference that children in need, and children in need has always had a strong link with the local BBC. You realise the difference that it does make to children and young people. So I enjoy doing the silly stunts, the bike rides, the sailing, the canoe thing, but ultimately as well telling the stories of the organisations, of the smaller youth clubs, the organisations that have benefited from children in need money. It's great to hear what they've done, getting some great emotional, uplifting content.
Do you always know that you can achieve the challenge before you set off?
No. I've got a rough idea. As I'm getting older now, they're a little bit more easy on me. Initially, when we did Tower to Tower, so I cycled from Paris to Blackpool. By the way, I did a breakfast show every single morning as well. So I'm up at stupid o'clock. And then when I finish, away we go for the day. So I did the breakfast show from underneath the Eiffel Tower. So I'm pumped. I'm as high as a kite. And then I get on my bike. And then I'm half an hour into it going, this is nice, this is easier, this is a doddle. An hour after that, I'm just outside Paris thinking, I can't do this. I'm thinking, there's no way I can do this, but I have to. I've got to do it. So we finished that night at 9:30 at night in Rouen. And then the second day was an absolute nightmare. Then we get to the UK and then we cycle up to Lancashire. So actually, in terms of fitness, for me, it gets slightly easier as the week goes on because I'm kind of training my body to it. But now I do challenges that are more suited to an elderly
what?
Chap like I am now. Yeah.
Okay, I get it. And I know because I work in the BBC, there's plenty of paperwork that goes in in advance. Some poor person is having to fill in a lot of paperwork every time you do anything. Yes, yeah. And it's a very small team here. So in terms of like booking hotels and things like that, it's me and another bloke, basically. It's a very small team. So as well as doing the breakfast show every morning, it's before the challenge, I've gone out and I've interviewed a lot of the projects that have benefited through the years from children in need money. Because you're talking to a lot of children, you've got to get the consent from the parents, and also you're dealing with children who have had some pretty horrible things happen to them, and there's other hoops you've got to jump through. It's hard work, but it is worth it to tell some very good, emotional, uplifting tales. When you're telling stories that are difficult, and actually sometimes, we all reach our point of how many difficult stories we want to listen to, and you might turn over. How do you tell stories on air that get the point across, that do share the challenging aspects of that person's life, but also make people want to listen and make people want to do something? It's always from the perspective of how the child or young person, how their life has been made better through people giving to the Children in Need Fund. It's never about me. It's never about my challenge or Graham's tired today or whatever. It's always front and centre is this youth club in Accrington, this centre in Morecambe or whatever. And we try and do a mix between some quite practical ones and some quite emotional, serious ones. We have to kind of weigh that
balance up, because we are broadcasting some really serious ones at breakfast and all the way through the day. It's a balance between some really kind of flipping heck, that's really tough. I can't believe this young person's had to go through that. I'll give some money to some really fun, happy, positive ones, really.
Yep, the uplifting ones as well. Thank you. Olivia, coming to you. Every year at Cam FM, you and the team of volunteers there do a fundraiser. In March, you're focusing on mental health, student mental health. Tell me about the value of doing fundraisers, because there will be others, people who are listening who may be in student or community radio, and actually it's a struggle to stay on air yourselves. So to kind of go above and beyond with a small team of volunteers, what's the value of doing these sorts of fundraisers?
For us, it's really important to connect with the student community and to get people involved in that way, and also with the wider community, as we're not just a student radio station, we're a community station as well. And for us, kind of appealing to others and showing that we want to connect to the community and kind of give something back to our loyal listeners by trying to make Cambridge just that little bit better with our support is what makes it worth it to go above and beyond in that way.
And I think when we talked before as well, you also said it's about who we are. It's what we stand for. That's a key thing. The stories that we tell on air, the fact that we get involved in this, it's part of your identity.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm just amazed by Emma's 14 million pounds, I think you said, and that is just something, obviously is incredible. It's so far beyond what we could even aim for. But I think for us, what's really important is raising awareness. And, this year we're fundraising for Student Minds. And although the money we raise, it'll go to an absolutely fantastic cause, it's also really a brilliant opportunity for us to signpost resources for students and for us to say, we care about mental health, we're here. We also find, I think men's mental health isn't talked about very much. To hear men on the radio having a conversation with each other about mental health and just, acknowledging that it's something that it's okay to talk about and that everybody in Cam FM really supports that. That's a message that we really want to put out. We don't mind too much about exactly how much is raised, because we know that students aren't exactly known for having the biggest budgets, and it's a difficult time for everybody. But it's just an added bonus that we can talk about things that we're all passionate about too.
Yeah. What advice might you share for other stations similar to your own, where you want to do something like this, but you're organising it all on a shoestring budget? Anything you might pass on?
I would say that it doesn't matter if things aren't on a huge scale. It's really great to do something fundraising wise that actually kind of motivates the team as well, together, to make you feel as if you're doing something good. So even if it just helps a couple of people, even if it's just 1 hour on the radio and you get a tenner in, or you get a couple of donations, or it inspires somebody to do something else, I think it's all really worth it.
Absolutely it is. Well, good luck with pulling all of yours together this time round. I know it reaches the end of your stint as station manager as well, so it's an interesting time to be putting all of this together. Any final pieces of advice anyone might pass on to anyone getting involved in whichever way in fundraising on the radio? Emma, you look like you were about to speak. Anything you might add?
I think there are 2 things that I would add. Agility and transparency. Cash for Kids has to stay relevant. We are really keen to make sure that our fundraising is bespoke to the communities we're supporting. So on the first day of lockdown, we launched our emergency appeal to target those families that were in financial crisis as a result of COVID. That grant has now become a cost of living grant. So as a charity, you've got to make sure that you are responding to the needs of your community, and transparency would be my final thing. Make sure that whatever you say you're going to do, you absolutely deliver on it.
That actually is such an important point, so I'm glad you've raised that. Graham, you're nodding. Any final word?
Yeah, be prepared for things to go wrong and keep it simple, really. Well, one of the nicest ones we just did the last Children in Need was Walk and Talk.
Oh, yeah, back in the autumn.
Because everyone was knackered after COVID, having, done 2 years of non-stop COVID stuff. It was a really simple idea where we get listeners all to join us to walk and talk, a big push for children and young people's mental health. And we got people to meet on the front in Morecambe on a very wet Friday lunchtime. We had about 500 listeners turn up, which was just crackers.
Wow.
We raised about £5 or £6 grand. it chucked it down as well. And it was just so simple, really, really simple.
Yeah.
So be prepared for things to go wrong, which they always do. The simple things probably always work out better.
Should I get the chance to do a part 2 follow-up on the power of radio for fundraising, Graham, I need to come back and ask you more about the things that went wrong and how you got round that. When the wheel fell off the 4-poster bed, I don't know, I'm just guessing. Did that happen?
Yeah.
That you were towing through town?
We pushed the bed from Pudsey to Bauer. There's a place in Morecambe called Bauer, Pudsey Bauer. You want to do it? It's always a really thorny name. The wheel fell off right at the end.
Oh, right at the end. Thank goodness. The wheels did come off.
All got those stories.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I should have started there. I was keen on the advice and learning, but you all keep going. That's the key bit. Thank you for all that you do. It's so interesting to get your take on fundraising on the radio and hear your different perspectives on it. And next time, I promise that we will start with stories about things that have gone wrong. I think Olivia's point about bringing radio teams together is a really good one. And I would add to that I think fundraising campaigns, however big or small, can also really bring out the best in us as well. Thank you so much for listening. Until the next time.